Hola, ¿cómo están todos? Mi nombre es Liliana Mayberry, estoy en Houston, Texas. Tengo más de casi 10 años con Pravana. Soy una educadora y también hago ventas con nuestra línea, con las distribuciones. También soy completamente bilingüe y pues estoy ahora con ustedes para hablar del cubrimiento de cana. Hi, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're visiting us today. I am Liliana Mayberry from Houston, Texas. I am a brand expert for Pravana and educator for Pravana for almost 10 years. I'm super excited. It's been a long ride with them. I am fluently bilingual, so I do get to visit a lot of my Texans areas and also other places of our country that requires me to go and do my thing, either it's in Spanish or in English. But today we're going to talk about gray coverage with Pravana. We love our product. I've been working for the product for like 12 years. I had to know the product first, right? In order for me to educate you guys. And I love about it because it's been an amazing experience to the results of my type of community of people that I have back at home behind the chair. And of course, the type of hair that I'm working with on the daily basis. Vamos a hablar un poquito de lo que yo hago detrás de la silla. Yo también trabajo como estilista, momentos, bueno, 5 días a la semana. Y pues el cubrimiento de cara para mí me ha ayudado mucho con esta línea de color. Ya tengo más de 12 años usándolo y me ha dado unos resultados porque ahorita ya sabemos, hay diferentes tipos de cabello, especialmente el tipo de cabello con que yo trabajo muy seguido. Trabajo con cabellos de diferentes niveles de tonos, con cabellos que son rubios, que son muy oscuros, y pues claro, el cubrimiento de cana, que es uno de los, una faceta muy difícil de hacer, ¿no? As we talk about our gray coverage, it is a very tough to achieve at times, depending what type of color of hair naturally you're working with and what is achievable with our product. So I'm going to go in small details. I apologize if I'm going back and forth, but it's going to be okay. We're going to make this through. We're going to talk about English and Spanish as I go through the process of what we're expecting today and what we're going to learn. Today, we're going to talk about Pravana gray coverage. It is a permanent hair color that has 3 ounces of working product. Who doesn't love that? I love it because the type of hair that I work with on the daily, they have a lot of thick hair. The customers that I have either coarse, either 25%, 50%, or 75% of gray. All right. So what's going to happen is, what am I going to be able to use to achieve? And we're going to talk about that today. Yo trabajo con bastante clientela que tiene demasiado cabello, no nada más que es poroso, pero al ser grueso puede tener 25% de cana, 50 o 75% de cana. Entonces, ¿cuáles son los obstáculos que vamos a tener que hacer para poder darle ese resultado que quiere la clienta? Okay. Por ejemplo, aquí estamos hablando del 25%. Déjenme ponerlo un poquito. Espérenme. Ahí está. Aquí tenemos un ejemplo de 25, 50 y 75% de cana. Right here, we have a 25, 50, and 75%. This is just an example of the type of hair color that we will be dealing with, whether it's a retouch or whether it's a full color that you're about to cover. We have 3 portfolios, for Pravana's line. All right. I'm going to start off with the N series. I want you to guys, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time just adjusting the light here. This whole N series that we have here covers up to 100% of gray coverage, okay? Now, the N series means it's a slight blue base tone. So what is it gonna give you? More of a cooler base, all right? So when we're lifting, we're going to have that cooler base tone result. Okay. Esta es la serie de N, la serie N. La N representa que cubre hasta 100% de cubrimiento de cana, pero que también tiene un pigmento un poco azulado. Y siendo un pigmento azulado, lo que va a pasar es que el resultado va a ser muy frío. Muchas veces hay unas estilistas que nunca han probado nuestro producto y piensan que es muy oscuro. No es que esté oscuro, es que matiza mucho lo que es los niveles naranjas y rojos a cómo va levantando el pigmento del color. So, no te va a dar ese cabello cálido, ese resultado cálido. No es lo que queremos, no es lo que vamos a usar. Le va a dar lo que es un resultado frío. Me encanta, porque realmente que te cubre la cana. Esta serie, this series right here, is the NET series. The NET series is neutral, okay? The neutral tones are a balanced tone, not too cool, not too warm. It is a balanced tone that's going to give your gray coverage an amazing brown color that you're wishing to do, whether it's a level 3 or up to a level 7. So what it gives you that neutral tone depending on what is the client wishing, what is he or she wanting as a result. It's not the N series where it's a little bit cooler. This is more of a balanced tone warm and a balanced tone cool. Esta serie es NT, que representa neutral. Neutral tiene un pigmento balanceado que no va a ser ni muy frío ni muy cálido. Estos NTs te van a cubrir hasta 100% de cana también, pero te va a ayudar dependiendo del resultado que la clienta quiera. O lo quiere algo más balanceado, que no lo quiera muy frío, pero lo quiera balanceado, ni muy frío ni muy cálido. Tenemos hasta nivel 3, hasta nivel 7. So, todo dependiendo de la preferencia que la persona quisiera. Y por último, vamos a hablar de la serie dorada. Esta serie dorada es un dorado frío, ¿ok? No va a ser algo ni muy cálido y no va a ser tampoco muy frío, pero el dorado no es muy cálido donde dicen, ay, me quedó muy naranja. No, para nada. Muchas de mis clientas no saben que hasta tienen dorado en el cabello, pero me encanta mezclar a veces el N series con esta serie de gold o de dorado, porque me ayuda a balancear también a veces. Si en caso que el NT se me hace muy cálido. I love this series. It's a 0.3 series. It is a gold, cool gold series. It covers up to 100%. It gives you also the great coverage that you're wanting, but also depending what are the results that the client wants. For example, she wants or he wants a red color, right? And we have 75% of gray. What are we going to do? I'm going to have to put 75%, let's say, of the 0.3 gold, depending if it's a level 3 or a level 7. And then I'm going to mix it with my red shades. And I get to pick whether it's a cool red, a violet red, warmer red, doesn't matter. Because if I use those other colors that doesn't cover gray, it's not going to cover the gray. So you got to keep in mind, you got to put at least, if it's 75% of gray, 75% of the gray coverage color with your choice of the red. Por ejemplo, acabo de hacer un ejemplo ahorita. Si una persona quiere un cabello rojo, vamos a poner despampanante, sea frío, sea un rojo violeta o sea un poco más frío o más cálido. Si tiene, por ejemplo, 75% de cana, yo le tengo que agregar 75% de uno de estos colores. ¿Por qué? Porque me va a dar ese brillo que yo quiero, ese cubrimiento, y no va a ser ni muy cálido ni muy frío, pero puedo algo más cálido, ¿no? Porque le quiero poner un poquito de dorado. Y luego le puedes escoger el color rojo deseado. Pero esto es muy importante porque si le pones el color rojo deseado que tú quieras, no te va a cubrir la cana. Necesitas algo que cubra, pero que también le dé el resultado de un color único que la persona quisiera. Eso es muy importante observar cuál es el pigmento porcentaje por clienta, dependiendo si vas a usar los NTs, la serie dorada o la serie N. Todo dependiendo. Y tú puedes mezclar los colorcitos, tú dándote cuenta más o menos qué es los resultados que el cliente quiere. Eso es muy importante. Y estas son las 3 series que tenemos para lo que es cubrimiento de cana. Ahora, these are the 3 series that we highly recommend. All right. So if you want to customize a certain color of the entire book and you're wanting to give the person the results that they need, you need to keep in mind you have to use those 3 series in order for you to do the great coverage, whether it's 25%, 50%, or 75%. I want to make sure that you identify that first on a quick consultation before you even start. I don't know how you guys do it at home. I normally like to consult the client days before or weeks before they even set their appointment if they never been to my salon. I want to identify their color. I want to identify what's fresh, what's their virgin hair, or what is their color history, how much percentage of gray, if any. Those are quick consultations that we suggest that you need to do before you even get this person behind the chair. So you can already prep yourself mentally and physically. What are the colors that they're wishing and what are the inspo photos that they would like to also bring to you depending on the color tones that they wish. Yo recomiendo que una consulta es muy importante. La consulta yo lo recomiendo que vengan unos días o unas semanas antes de hacer su cita personal. Ya haciendo la cita, yo ya me doy una idea si tiene el cabello poroso, cuánto porcentaje de cana tiene, o qué tan grueso el cabello, cuál es la historia, cuál es el porcentaje del cabello virgen, qué es los pigmentos o colores que yo voy a usar para darle el color inspirado que ella tiene o que él tiene. So, es muy importante que tú ya estés analizando antes de empezar cada clienta, porque no quieres sorpresas, no quieres saber en qué te afectó, por qué no le cubrió la cana. Esos son muchas situaciones, especialmente el porcentaje de que va a tener la clienta si es que tiene cana. Also keep in mind, guys, that when you're doing the consultation, you do that thorough consultation to make sure if they have any of the percentage of the gray in order for you to give the inspo that they, based on the inspo photo that they would have. It is very important that you cover all those details because you don't want to use all this product and then you didn't get the results that you wished, whether it was the color coverage or the color they wish to do, especially if we're dealing with gray. What about if it didn't color? Well, what did we do? What did we did that we created something incorrect, right? So we got to keep in mind, something Pravana always suggests. We have 3 ounces per tube, all right? We love and we suggest to measure on a scale. When you measure on a scale, clear the top, make sure you have a bowl so it won't measure the bowl. Then you start putting the quantity of grams of color that you are going to need. And we mix it with 1 to 1.5 of developer. We normally suggest 20 volume. Okay. And you're going to do your portion of 1 part of the color that you wish to do and 1 to 1.5 parts of developer in order for you to be able to get the correct results. I know we all have bad habits. I used to, but I had to start doing it in order for me to be very precise if this person is coming every month, every so many weeks to get the same color every time. It is very important we do that. I see that behind the chair that we're just kind of mixing, we're in a hurry, and what happens? We don't measure. And then we don't get the results that we want and that the person wants. They're going to see the difference. Una cosa que sugiero, que siempre midan el color. Tenemos 3 onzas en cada tubo. Eso es demasiado color para poder usar ese color. So, por ejemplo, pones lo que es tu medida del color y luego sugerimos que hagas 1,5 partes ¿okay? Del peróxido 20 volumen para el cubrimiento de cana. ¿Quieres medirlo en una escala? Porque es muy importante. Si en caso que tú no lo midas y tú estás calculando y esta persona viene a las 3, 4 semanas al retoque, ¿qué tal si no te da los resultados? ¿Qué pasa? No hiciste descubrimiento, no le dio el tono que esta persona quería. Entonces es muy importante que estemos midiendo en una escala para poder darle los resultados lo más precisamente que se pueda. Eso es muy importante y luego después no decir, no, pues el color no me cubrió. Bueno, tenemos que hacer los pasos correctos, ¿cierto? Hay que siempre tener esas buenas manitas. Para poder tener los resultados que quieres. Also, we suggest, right? We all say 20 volume covers, gray, but guess what, guys? 10 volume can also do the same thing. Let's say the person has literally a few here and there pieces of gray. They're just in the beginning stage of gray. It is suggested if they're wanting if they're wanting something darker, or their hair's been really light and you just want to, add a more deposit to the hair. There's no point of going 20 if you can use 10 volume with a very minimal of what it is of the gray coverage. That's just a pro tip that we also can suggest, and you can mix it with any of the color series that you have. And what are they? N series, NT, and the Gold series. And of course, if you want to customize it, use other colors from our swatch. It would do amazing. All right. And so we want to make sure that it can help with us getting the best results that we are wanting, depending on the percentage of the gray. What else can we cover today? I see there was a few questions on the floor.
Yes, we do have one. Megan asks, does Pravana have an intense series for resistant gray? Example from Wella. So what would be your recommendation for if someone has very resistant gray? What would be a good formula for them?
Good question. So the question is, what do we have that will be for resistant gray? Some other color lines have either, for example, double N's or double numbers, right? We don't have that in our portfolio. What we do is what we have. It's 3 portfolios that can give you that. Now, what I suggest as a pro tip, behind the chair, this is based on my experience. The front frame always has the most resistant gray. I don't know why, but it does. And we have to remember, the gray, it's more of a wiry hair. It's more coarse, it's more thick, depending on everybody's head. Of course, whether it's straight, whether it's coily, whether it's just changing, because the gray can also change the texture of the person's natural hair. What happens is, how gray hair becomes as we age, we lose melanin. Our hair doesn't produce the pigment cells start changing, right? And so it starts changing it to where we have less melanin. And it also gives it more of a struggle for that entry of color to cover that hair. So what I suggest behind the chair, we don't have a double N series or anything like that, but this would do the work. For example, I'm just going to keep it basic. I'm going to put a 6N, okay? Let's see, we can see it here. 6N, right there. Regular basic color that everybody goes to. Covers up to 100%, right? So what I like to do is I like to apply a little bit of the direct color before I mix it with my developer onto those areas that I know are going to be tough to cover. I like to put it right here, especially right around the ear, on the temple, working my way all the way to the other side of the frame, because I want to make sure that I'm applying that color directly, slowly. And then once I mix my developer with my color that is on the bow, then I'll start sectioning and start applying. You want to make sure you saturate those roots, all right? You just don't want to be swiping and swiping because you're removing that color. You want to make sure you excessively put it on there, We suggest the perm rods papers that you use for perms, because also the hair is wiry. So it can be flowing everywhere, but it's not going to allow the hair follicle to open up, right? So we want to make sure we lay it down. I like to put a little plastic cap on them because I want that body heat to create the natural ambience that we also need. We don't need no heaters. We don't need anything. All you need is just the natural environment. Let them sit with that plastic, and we recommend 45 minutes of that color to be on that hair. It is very important you also time yourself. All right. But that is a pro tip that I suggest, since we don't have double N's or double NTs or double 0.33 golds, for great coverage. Our color itself can do it, just depending how your application is placed on the hair. But again, I suggest do a little bit of the color directly before you mix it with a developer. Put it onto those hard areas that are hard to cover and move on from there. Oh, guys, I see a lot of questions. That is amazing. Can we do another one?
Yes. So we have another question. Will 10 volume be considered gray blending?
That's a good question. Would 10 volume be gray blending? Can it be? Yes, but it can also cover at up to 100%. On the gray blending, though, we have this color that is a demi-permanent, all right, is called HydraGloss. All our series right here is NT. We have done great blending with that. It is a gel-like form. It is 3 ounces of that tube as well. And we suggest that color, but to be mixed with 0 volume. All right. So what we do is, it is a demi that is only going to deposit. If you leave it up to 20 minutes or more, you can actually cover up to 50% of that gray, depending on what color tone you are picking. I've done it a lot behind the chair. We do promote that. Also with our product, it would give it extra shine, but it's not going to leave that harsh line as the hair grows out, because eventually it's going to fade out. Now, to some people, it may fade more, and to some people, it may not fade as much, but it's a way of gray blending. And if you don't want that harsh line, then just leave it for less time. We suggest that gray blending with this series, with the HydraGloss. And this is a mixed ratio of 1 part of HydraGloss, 1 part of Serial Developer. Now, do we suggest with 10? No, because this is only for permanent color. And depending on how you leave the color, right, you're saying that it's going to be great blending. I'm going to be honest, I use it to the same amount of time, from 30 to 45 minutes, and it would cover the gray, just depending if it's less than 25%. I don't suggest anything that is a little bit more intense. That's a 25, 50, or 75. But this is just an idea that our color and developers can cover up to 100% of gray. So that's a good question. I'm glad you guys are interacting with me with that, but they are different options on what is it that the client wants and what will be best for you, especially using a certain product that maybe, I don't know if you guys have used it or not, but it really does help. In our classes, we like to do a lot of the gray swatching. And I like my people to see what are they doing, how are they mixing it, and how long do we leave it. Also, room temperature, it's very important. We don't use heaters. Products are not, they're even announce it on their labels that you don't need no heaters. You don't need it, guys. If you mix the proper color on a scale, you do your measurements right, you apply correctly onto that hair, and you cover it, and you do your timing correct, you will get coverage up to 100%, depending on the client that you have. So it is important that you do that. And one thing I said earlier, if the person has 75% of gray, that means 75% of that gray coverage series. And if they're wanting a customized color, for example, red, that will be another small percentage, but your mainly percentage is going to be your great coverage series. So it's the N, the NTs, and the 0.3s. I suggest yes, 20 volume. Especially if you have a client that is very stubborn. It is very, very, very important that we do that and that we make sure. I've even covered it with 30 volume. This person wanted an intense red, and they wanted, for example, a level 7, right, of red. And I mixed it with an NT. I'd use the 7 NT with a 6.66, depending on the color level that I started with. But I wanted to just give it a little boost. I went ahead and started on the ends, and I worked my way to the roots. But she had about 25% gray, and I used 30 volume. Did it cover the gray? It did. And you want to strand test first if you're not sure before you waste a lot of product. We don't suggest that. Strand test always. A small little, hair strand in between the hairs so it can be lost and it will be not as noticeable. You want to do it from the roots to the ends. I like to do it with a little piece of foil so we can make sure it doesn't run through other pieces of the hair. And do a strand test. Leave it for at least 20 to 30 minutes just to kind of see what is the results that it's giving you, if it's covering. And we wouldn't want you to waste any product if you're unsure about a certain way of how the results are going to be. So it's very, very important that we strand test first. I do it all the time with some challenging colors, and especially if it's a new client. So keep that in mind. I also keep notes. Every client has a profile in my salon, and I write my own notes, especially for the ones that I struggle with more with gray. I know that my technique is going to be a little bit different from not just applying the color on her roots. It is very, very important that you get to know your clients and that you get to know how tough is their gray. Because I've had some, guys, I'm not going to lie to you, that I'm just putting a basic one in, and she had very thick and quantity of hair, and it glazed, and I didn't do the proper timing. I just thought, oh, it's just a little patch that she has here. It'll be fine. And she was my new client. And no, that little patch was just as tough as the other areas when they have 75% or more. So we got to keep that in mind. I know, and I need to write down on my notes that the correction needs to be done way ahead of time, and how my technique is going to go about from there, because it's very important. We don't want to leave a client upset because they didn't get the results that they needed, especially with covering the gray. Some of them also think that in 2 weeks, the color is fading. Well, we all know, guys, that's not true. The hair growth starts literally in 2 weeks. We're still having hair growth. We'll start seeing it, especially in our frame or here in our crown area, how the new growth is coming in. Oh, Lily, my hair faded. No, ma'am. That is called hair growth. You start growing your natural hair within 2 weeks. You're going to start seeing some glazing pieces here and there. A lot of them have played it off by just putting either eyeshadow or whatever they can to play it off on their hairline. But I do have the ones that come every 3 weeks, which considers it to be every month, to make sure they cover those grays, just because they don't want to be showing it off as much as others. So again, this is just an example of what we have. This is what our box looks like, and it is a ChromaSilk permanent color. The color is going to be showing just like that, whatever the color and the level and the initials and what it represents. And it's also going to have the mix ratio. That mix ratio is going to be literally showing you in the box. That is 1 part of the color and 1 to 1.5 of the developer of your choice, to get the percentage and the right results that you need. This is our N series. And you guys see, it's only an N. That's all you need. The N is going to represent that it's going to be a cooler, slight blue base tone. Cover up to 100% of gray. Then this is our ChromaSilk HydraGloss image. It's aqua blue, I would say, with a slide of purple going into blue. This is the X6NT series, which, what did we say? It's a neutral tone, cooler to warmer tone. It's a balanced tone. I like to fill this in also as a low light. But if the person doesn't want something more permanently and they just want a glaze or gray blend, this is a color to use. It is a gel-like form. It gives it shine. And it's up to you to leave it 10 to 20 minutes or a little less. But we suggest to do at least 20 minutes for sure to be able to get the results that you need and to get the color that you wish. We have more questions. Wow, we're getting a lot of questions out here.
So there were some questions that I'm just going to rapid fire, just give you kind of in a chunk. But if you can provide some clarification, I added it in the chat, but I think it's important that we talk about it too. Can you mix HydraGloss with ChromaSilk permanent color? And if you are using a lower volume developer, for example, 10 volume, would you be doing that at a lower processing time?
Okay, so the first question is, can you mix HydraGloss Demi-Permanent with our ChromaSilk permanent line? No, you cannot. Two different aspects. You have a permanent that will lift the hair and that allows 30 to 45 minutes, right? To be able to lift the cuticle and do its results as it's going and processing slowly. The demi-permanent, it's not for lifting. It's just for depositing. So if I'm just going to deposit, for example, we have one NT HydraGloss. We're not doing anything. She wants to keep the hair to look the same. She's not trying to lift or she's not trying to go lighter. She just wants to go a little darker. And she just wants a little bit of, I would say, a glaze. I would just do that. I'm just adding a demi-permanent that is just going to deposit because we're not lifting. And it's mixed with 0 volume, so it's not going to lift. Now, 10 volume, it's a minimal lift, but also mainly depositing. But that has the small ammonia that it would help with the color permanent, with the permanent color that has ammonia, where it's going to allow it to lift a little, but also deposit. We don't want to mix permanent with demi. Two different aspects, two different results. We don't want to do that. And we don't suggest it because one is cream and one is gel. And it's not going to give you the results that you need. The consistency is going to be completely way off. And that is not what we're wanting to do. Now, the 10 volume, again, it's more of a deposit, minimal lift. But again, depending on the gray coverage, I've done it behind the chair if the person literally has way less than 25%. I can apply it. She's just in the beginning of her gray stage. She might have seen 1 or 2 or 3 all around her hair, and she's just wanting something to just deposit into the hair. She's not wanting to lift very much. Again, she's just staying within the same levels that she wants to be or he wants to be. That's when I use a 10. If we're using a 20, it's because we're lifting up to 2 levels at least. We all know 10 volume, it's mainly deposit. 20 volume is 1 level of lift. 30 volume is 2 levels of lift. And 40 volume is 3 levels of lift. So we got to keep that in mind that we're depending what are the results and what do they have already in their hair. Are they lifting or they're depositing? And if they're lifting, how many levels of lift? How much gray percentage do they have? Those things are when it comes to a consultation. So those things are important. That's when you're going to analyze and see what are you going to use? What color customization are you going to use? But if you're covering gray, which is what we're talking about today, then you want to make sure you use your 3 color series that we have available. Your golds, 0.3s, your N series, and your NT series. And again, you want to do some gray blending, nothing too crazy, then you do your demi, your HydraGloss, because you know it's temporarily and it's going to wash off a little bit faster than the permanent would. So I hope that cleared your questions, especially for not mixing permanent with demi. We do not do that. We do not suggest it because we don't know what the results would be. And it's 2 different results. You got one that is permanent that's going to lift, and you have one that is completely demi that is only going to deposit. So we got to keep that in mind and what levels you're working with. Okay. What else can we cover? Let's see. Gray can be challenging. Gray, again, it depends. The age, I think, sometimes on the client, depending on, also, I feel like behind the chair, I've experienced when a person their body is always cold. They don't seem to get warm easily. And I've noticed my hair color takes longer to lift or even make the adjustment. I do keep them covered with to protect their clothing with one of my robes. And again, I sometimes put a towel over their head with the plastic, of course, on their head, just to keep the hair warm. I want to keep that environment warm for her or for him so I can get the results that I need. And just let them sit. And timing is very important. If you have a very stubborn gray client, do your 45 minutes. There has to be 45 minutes. Even if they have a less percentage of 25 minutes and those parts are stubborn, leave them for 45 minutes. You have to do your time soon as you start, soon as you apply the color on their head and you let them sit for 45 minutes. It's also very important. How are you applying that color on their hair? How many swipes are you constantly going through each section? We have to saturate it and do thin slices through sections to make sure that that color opens up that cuticle to allow the color to literally get into that gray hair. So it is very important how you're saturating, not be swiping all the time because you're just removing the color, and all it does is kind of just glaze those areas. You want to make sure that you put the plastic, and again, I've done where I'll put the plastic cap, but I'll put either sometimes a little piece, like I said, of permanent paper, just because you want to make sure you keep those little wired hairs or whatever laying down so the hair can expand and it can allow the color to get in there. What do we suggest? Put that plastic, and again, let it sit, and then put a towel if you need to for 45 minutes. So again, 45 minutes for great coverage for you to get the true results that you're needing.
We have another question. What about using for resistant grays, what about putting the client under the dryer for 20 minutes?
No, we suggest to literally do natural temperature, whatever your surroundings are. I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a hair dryer. I haven't had a hair dryer, and probably 8 years. I don't think there's no need for it because your environment, I mean, I'm not saying my AC is at 69 or 68 at the salon, but there are cool areas, right? And you have to you're working, so you're warmed up, but they're not working. They're just sitting there, right? So they do get a little colder faster, but no, we don't suggest. Even the product lines tell you in the back of behind the print, no heat. No direct heat, no under the dryer. We don't even suggest the UV lamps. I mean, or the heating lamps that they have that make no noise. products are customized to just no need of extra tools. I think that working and learning the client as they come in every month or once a year, and there's just one client that comes in once a year kind of thing. You have an idea. If you keep a profile per that person and you know they're a constant client that comes in, you're already going to know their hair. You already know what you got to do, maybe to try and error the first time, but you're going to have to fix it if the first time wasn't achievable. But if you already have an idea how that person is going to be on the results, again, you don't need no heat. All you need is natural temperature, and you just have to keep it to a certain way. This is a pro tip, but if you have a complimentary glass of wine, give them that. That warms them up a little bit, and that can probably, coffee. Just say no alcohol, but just coffee. Coffee can warm that up, and it can warm up their inner body. They're relaxing and they're just processing. So it's something to keep in mind, and just keeping it a natural ambience, no need of heat, because all you're doing is accelerating something that needs to be processed slow and low. Why accelerate when then in that case, I think that's when hot roots come in, because now you're accelerating the developer and the color to work faster, and you're not going to get the results that you want. Because again, we already have natural heat when it comes to our roots. So it is something that I don't suggest, especially if you want to make sure you have a full, evenly color process. So that is my best advice to you guys. Again, we all work differently behind the chair, but I don't even own a dryer or any type of heating lamp or anything in my salon. And while that person is processing, I can do another haircut, and I just check with them every so many minutes, make sure they're doing fine, checking their hair, that it's doing its job. And you don't want to be neglectful. You just want to be making sure that you're also being productive behind the chair, but that you're also keeping up with them and seeing the results as the 45 minutes are processing. So I hope that answered your question. But again, what you do behind the chair is you, but don't be surprised if maybe those results may affect you at times, because each client reacts differently, and we don't want to reactivate a product that needs to be working slow and on its own process, instead of accelerating it. And then before you know it, you have unwanted results of color on the roots.
There was not a question, but a comment that leads me into a question for you. When, especially with clients who need gray coverage, sometimes they are going through body changes, hormonal changes, sometimes they are on medication. How would you adjust your formulas with the tools that we have at Pravana to be able to accommodate for those changes?
That's a good question. It is a tough one. I think that also would be, again, go back to the consultation, get to see what the person is taking. I'm not no doctor, so I'm not going to know medical terms. But I do know that, again, that's when your strand test comes in. You also want to make sure if they're going to be allergic to anything, because it may not just be the product, it could just be them. So I suggest to do a strand test before you start, just because I do feel like medication or treatments can affect the results of the hair, and you don't want to spend all their time and then their color processing and not get what you want based on something that was kind of, I wouldn't say impossible, but that wasn't achievable at what the standards that he or she and that you wanted, just because of those treatments and that medication. I just realized I haven't really talked Spanish, and we have some Spanish speakers there. Ha habido muchas preguntas en lo que es de Pravana. Por ejemplo, el pigmento de la diferencia del 10 volumen a cubrir el cubrimiento de cana. El 10 volumen lo recomiendo cuando son un que otro cabellito blanco que esté en la cabeza para poder hacer el cubrimiento, pero que no va a levantar mucho el cabello, va a ser muy mínimo y va a ser más depósito. Las preguntas han sido que si tú puedes mezclar permanente, el color permanente con el HydraGloss permanente. La respuesta es no. El permanente es completamente diferente porque levanta el cabello al nivel, sea 1 o sea 2, dependiendo el peróxido que vas a usar con el color permanente y para el cubrimiento de cana. Es otro tipo de resultado. Cuando estás depositando, va a ser mínimo, ¿no? Porque vas a escurecer, no vas a aclarar, porque el demi no te va a aclarar. Nada más te va a depositar para corregir o para nada más blender el cabello un poquito al igual que ya lo traía. Otra pregunta sería si usas secadoras en tu salón. Las secadoras no se han usado en muchos años, ni siquiera las lámparas. Si así lo usas, es tu opción, pero no se recomienda porque ya lo que es cada color y cada aclaramiento requieren que sea tu alrededor, sea lo que es un alrededor, un ambiente cálido, pero que no sea ni muy frío ni muy cálido, dependiendo de tu área, porque va a haber unos resultados que si le vas a acelerar con la secadora, pueda que te den unos resultados muy claros porque está acelerando el color y el peróxido y te va a dar colores que tal vez ella o él no van a querer en la raíz. Pueda que te aclare demasiado, muy rápido y no da el resultado que necesita el depósito, especialmente el cubrimiento de cana. Se recomienda poner un plastiquito en el cabello, ya después poniendo el color saturado en la raíz, especialmente en esas áreas muy, muy difícil de cubrir. Hay que empezar primero con el colorcito antes de mezclar con el peróxido. Se requieren esas partes más difíciles. Mezclas el color con el peróxido y luego haces tu continuación en aplicar completamente el color en la raíz, saturando esas raíces. Si tienes que poner esos papelitos de permanente en esas áreas difíciles, ponlo para que acueste el cabello y pueda ayudar que abra el cabello para poder meter el color, ajustar y que pueda cubrir con el plastiquito, y si quieres una toalla para que la mantenga o lo mantiene un poco más calientito para que le pueda dar los resultados. Just trying to go through some of the questions that were thrown out there. I've been speaking English for quite some time, so I just needed to make sure I kind of cover some of those in Spanish for our Spanish speakers. Again, I don't suggest to do any kind of pre-pigmentation or anything like that. Just use the direct color you need in those hard areas. Again, before I mix my developer, the bow and the colors on the same, right? But before I mix it with my whisk or my plastic brush or my plastic whisk, I want to make sure that I just apply the direct color on those areas, especially if, like you said, they're on medication or anything like that. Once you get your strand test and you get your results, then maybe you should do those type of techniques, just because we want to make sure we are getting the right results. It is very important. I've had some clients that have gone through chemo. Normally the doctors tell them automatically they cannot do any type of chemicals throughout the process. It is not suggested. I've had some clients and they've been very honest with me, because of course there's some that their hair doesn't fall and they're using another type of treatment and I will not know about, but they have been honest with me. Whether they are finishing or they're in the process of finishing, I always tell them, finish your treatment first, talk to your doctor before anything else, and then I do a thorough consultation. A strand test comes about because you don't want them to react, or their skin to react with the product before you move forward. Those are things that I highly suggest. Consultation is very important. Talk to your client, get to know them, because you don't want that to fall back on you if the result ends up harming them in any kind of way. So let's protect ourselves from working with clients like that. And also wanting them to know that we care. So that is very important. We want them to make sure that we care and that we want the best for them when it comes having our experience behind the chair. La última pregunta fue, cuando tenemos situaciones, cuando hay tratamientos, cuando hay medicina, hay que ser honestos con la clienta. Hay que tener esa relación, que ellos se sientan conforme en decirte lo que está pasando o lo que pasó. Se requiere que se haga lo que es un examen chico, si en caso que el tratamiento ya se adquirió, ya se terminó, habló con el doctor le dijo que se puede venir a hacer su cabello, X, pero tú tienes que tener esa información y hay que ser honestas y honestos con ellos y que ellos sean honestos contigo, porque los resultados va a caer a tu responsabilidad y tú no quieres esos resultados que te puedan afectar a ti como estilista o afectarle a ellos como una clienta. Entonces, es muy importante que tengas esta comunicación y que sean muy realistas contigo y que hagas un examen primero de unos 20, 30 minutos en un pedacito de cabello para saber cómo reaccionó el cuero cabelludo o el cabello antes de aplicar todo un solo color y luego los resultados son algo que puedas arrepentirte, ¿no? So, es muy importante que hagamos y cubramos esa información. I hope that answered your question. Again, it all falls back to communication when it comes to talking with someone who is in some kind of medical terms. We want to make sure that they're clear from their doctor. I don't go as thorough. So far, my clients have been very honest with me, and some of them I've known for many years. But communication is very important, and it's something we suggest for you to protect yourself behind the chair. So I hope that answered your question.
We have some more questions.
Awesome.
So one of them is in regards to a return client coming in where they've gotten their hair colored with another color line, but now they're coming to you, and they've got about 4 weeks of roots that they need covered. So how would you recommend color matching from one color line to our color line for gray coverage?
That's a good question. We get those a lot, right? Especially now. Clients hop around all the time sometimes. It happens. Trust me, 25 years in the business, I've seen it all. I'm really good at color matching when it comes to matching someone else's results. But again, go back to the consultation. Hey, you're new. I haven't seen you in 2 years or whatever it may be. Yeah, I've been going somewhere else, blase, blase. All of a sudden, you talk to them and they're telling you, you know what, I want to keep the same. I love the color. I'm just looking for another stylist. They may know, they may not know you're using the same color. Some of them don't even know that terminology, right? So we want to limit ourselves on what we say, just because you don't want to sound I would say, not confident of not matching that color. But if you want to grab your swatch book, kind of get ourselves an idea. Identify first what is the level that the ends have, for you to determine what is the level. And if they want to keep the same, then all right, well, that for example, the end series is going to be a cooler tone and they're in between, then maybe strand test a piece with the NTs because she's not too warm and not too cool, or he's not too warm and not too cool. So I think it's a good way to identify the level, how many levels of lift you're going to do, or you're depositing. So get as close as you can by identifying it first with, for example, this is a good chart to have, just so you can give yourself an idea. It's always going to be tricky because it's never going to be an exact level, or it can be in between. But at least you give yourself an idea. And if you're familiar and are educated with the color line, let's say, especially with ours, then you'll know that if she's in between a 6 and a 7, then maybe I should play it safe and maybe go with a 7 at first if they want to keep the same, and then just do the retouch up. But I would also suggest do a strand test first. You don't want to waste a bowl of product, and especially her time or his time, and say, oh, this is not what I wanted. I don't want this. This is too dark, or this is too light. You want to make sure we want to get as close as possible as what the person is desiring. And you give yourself an idea. A lot of the colors tend to have different results. I haven't used them all. I mean, it is, let's be honest, some of us are very aggressive when it comes to trying other stuff, but some of us are kind of more comfortable where we at and what are we going to do. So if you've been comfortable with the product, you're going to be more familiar with it, that it's going to help you choose the correct color to be as close as possible. Could it be exactly the same? Not all the time, but as close as possible, you can do it. So it's all about going back to a consultation, getting the level that they are on the ends, identify that. What is the level of their natural virgin hair? And then what are they wanting? They're wanting to deposit or lift. And if they want to be the same, you can get as close as possible, even with another color line. I've never had a problem as of now. Now, where it can be challenging, it could be on some red tones, because the reds tend to fade automatically, golds. So it could be different. But again, that's when we go back to a strand test, kind of figure it out. Okay, I'm going to mix this. I'm going to mix a little bit of that, and it's going to get close to it. Because you don't want to have that harshing banding that is going to be created from the ends to the roots. So if you're unsure about something, I suggest, again, strand testing. I know we all try to avoid it because it takes time, but to play it safe and not to waste your time and your product, their time especially, and your product, you want to make sure you get as close as possible before you're mixing all your colors, and then you apply all of that in the hair. La pregunta fue, ¿cómo puedes mezclar un color cuando están usando otro estilista, otra línea de color y el color que vas a usar ahora contigo, ¿no? La pregunta sería, ¿cómo puedes lo que es machar lo que es la raíz contra las puntas? Si nada más quiere un retoque. Tienes que identificar el nivel primero que tienen en la punta, y si quieren mantener el mismo look, ¿cuál va a ser más o menos el nivel? Si puede estar en el 6 o en el 7, si está entre el medio, nunca va a ser perfecto al nivel que tú estás analizando, pero te puedes agarrar un colorcito que sea cerca a ese color. Haz tu examen de unos 20, 30 minutos en un pedacito de cabello para poder tener los mejores resultados. No quieres gastar el tiempo de la clienta o tu color sabiendo que no le vas a poder dar ese color deseado, y no quieres hacer el resultado y luego no es lo que la persona quiere. So, hay que estudiar el producto. A veces los productos son similares y hay veces que hay una gran diferencia. Entonces hay que ver qué es lo que necesitas tú y qué técnica y qué niveles para poder adquirir y tener el resultado correcto. So es muy importante. I hope that answered that question when it comes to matching. Again, it all goes back to a consultation, identifying the levels of color, and then strand testing. I feel like you can't go wrong with a strand test because at least you're visually seeing and giving yourself an idea, and that you picked almost the right color. I don't think there's never a perfect color, but it's going to be similar as long as you know the product as well. You can't have a new client and then you just want to try this product and then expect to know the results right away. No, guys, we have to, and we suggest to learn the product just a little bit more, get more knowledgeable. And if you have pieces of swatchings, just do it with that. It gives you an idea, but just keep in mind, those swatches have no heat because there's just a little piece of hair. Humans, we do have body heat, so it's a little bit different, and the results are a little bit different. So I hope that answered those questions. I know we have a lot of interaction going on. I can kind of see them pop up here and there. So again, we have pravana.com, so you can create a profile. We have free classes in there. We have so much knowledge when it comes to the product. We have everything for free for you. So if you even decide to chat real quick, we have California time. And if you have questions, we have someone behind the scenes that can actually respond to you. And if you are wanting someone in Spanish, they can also help you with that. My name is Liliana Mayberry, and my social media is LHS_Lush, LUSH. Again, thank you so much for having me today. It's been an amazing 1-hour class, and I hope that we stay connected. Again, stay connected on all our social medias. We have Facebook, we have a website, we have all kinds of information you guys can follow if you have any doubts or anything to learn more about our product. And we have other classes available as well. Bueno, gracias por tenerme. Tenemos una red social que es pravana.com. Haga su perfil. Las clases son gratis. Va a haber todo disponible gratis, videos, toda la información va a estar ahí. Si tienen preguntas, pregunten. Tenemos un chat en vivo que se puede hacer todo eso. Mi nombre es Liliana Mayberry. Sigan nuestras redes sociales y gracias por acompañarme el día de hoy y espero verlos pronto. Tenemos más clases a continuación este mes. Gracias.